Well, the energy question is everywhere these days. What with the oil spill in the Gulf, that's making everybody from the president on down rethink our dependency on oil and focus more urgently on alternative renewable energy sources. Of course, this question had already been popular in the headlines as energy and climate legislation and a new paper from the SEC on climate risk disclosure had awakened business and public concern alike.
Now, the interesting thing about greenhouse gases is they're very different than sort of your traditional pollutants that are regulated under the Clean Air Act. Most pollutants regulated under the Clean Air Act can be controlled by implementing an end-of-line device or some other technical fix to capture them. Greenhouse gases, as we know, we don't have an end-of-line device that can make them inert or that can capture them. So the traditional kind of command and control approach of EPA regulation doesn't work as well in the context of greenhouse gases. Pfizer decided to do in response to the SEC guidance was to specifically call out climate change in its SEC disclosure. Not that it is now a material risk or opportunity for our company, but simply to alert investors that in the mix of issues that we look at, we also look at climate change risks and opportunities.
The Copenhagen wasn't quite successful because it didn't result in a legally binding international agreement, but our view is that it really spurred what we call the green race, which is now the focus is on individual countries, individual voluntary submissions and targets, and we actually saw over 80 individual countries submit letters of acknowledgement or commitment or specific emissions reduction targets to the Copenhagen Accord. So we believe that the core elements of any comprehensive energy and climate bill would include the following: an emissions reduction target, a price on carbon, and most typically we've seen this in the form of a cap and trade system, a renewable electricity standard, which would mandate that a certain percentage of our electricity come from renewable energy sources, direct spending and financing for renewable energy projects through mechanisms such as the proposed Clean Energy Deployment Administration, also known as CEDA.
But if you know anything, I think, about the kind of history of finance theory, it's all about kind of ignoring the real world and looking at mathematical models, so it's no big surprise. I think the end result has been a system where we're very good at putting prices on things, but we're not very good at understanding the costs. And when there are gaps between price and cost, you have a system that makes very bad decisions. One glaring example of that, I think, is BP, which, based on market capitalization, at least before the disaster, was one of the largest companies in the world. It's one of the largest companies in the world because the market has allocated so much capital to this firm without considering the significant safety problems that this company has had over the last 5 to 10 years.
Adam, you talked about BP's record relative to their peers, and Bloomberg had a very interesting article on that. They are hugely an outlier in terms of the actual violations that they have incurred relative to their peers. And what this points to, we talked about ES&G, environmental, social, and governance factors into the investment process. So really what this highlights, in my opinion, is poor governance. If we can educate the investor relations people to speak and to highlight and put emphasis on the materiality of environmental and social reporting, that will go a long ways towards educating a lot of people.
The other incentives, when we're talking about incentives from a company perspective, and it actually also links up to CDP or Carbon Disclosure Project, is on the supplier side, or actually the customer side. So when Walmart went out and announced that they asked their 100,000 suppliers plus to start reporting, they're using the carbon disclosure projects like the questionnaires and asking companies to do that. That whole thing have started like a snowball.